Welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 years strong as we are celebrating and commemorating 12 years of the PST Podcast Show this month here in April. It is great to be in your ears if you are listening on a podcast platform, whatever podcast platform that is. Hello to our YouTube viewers out there. It is great to see you. This week, we have a bit of an abbreviated show. As you will see, there are no co-hosts with me this week. Some scheduling issues have not allowed them to join us, but we're going to get into some Phillies talk, some brief Phillies talk right off the bat. And then we have a great guest joining us this week on the show to get into this upcoming Flyers offseason and what the long-term future is going to be for this Flyers organization and team. Ryan Gilbert from BroadStreetHockey.com and the Broad Street Hockey Podcast. He is going to join us to get into the presser this past week from Danny Briere, the direction of this team, the goalie situation, what this upcoming NHL Draft is going to look like for the Flyers, what type of strategies that they're going to be looking at as they continue to build for the future. Can't wait for that discussion with Ryan, so stick around for that. But I want to get into the Philadelphia Phillies and their season thus far. Right out of the gate, strong. Their first three series of the year, they won, as we know. We were all feeling good, feeling great, feeling confident about this team. They were able to compete with the Dodgers. We saw that. And then, as we know, things have dramatically fallen off in just about every area, whether it's starting pitching, whether it's the bullpen, whether it's in the batter's box, runners in scoring position as well. We know that that has been a challenge for this team. Recently, I was on the Hittin' Season podcast with our good friend and buddy, John Stallness, who's appeared on the PST podcast show a number of times over the years. We talked about the state of this team, and we dove into a lot of these themes here that I just mentioned. You'll want to go check out the Hittin' Season podcast as well. But also, with regard to our discussion here, I think it's important to note that there are so many questions concerning this bullpen. And right now, the Philadelphia Phillies are missing two high-leverage relievers. They are missing Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez from a season ago. Both are thriving right now in their new homes. Jeff Hoffman right now, he's got a 1.59 ERA in 10 appearances with 5 saves for Toronto. And meanwhile, Carlos Estevez, he's got a 0.90 ERA in 9 games for Kansas City, and he's got 5 games as well. Look, Orion Kerkering, he has been struggling, trying to find that one pitch that is really going to be able to help him, that one pitch in his arsenal that is going to be able to get him out of certain situations and get the team out of certain situations that they're in later in games. Matt Strom doing very well this year. Jose Alvarado doing very well this year. The sky's not necessarily falling when it comes to those two individuals, but really, let's talk about the one gentleman who is really not helping this team at all. Jordan Romano, my goodness, a rough start to this season. But as we have seen over the course of these past few games, his velocity has actually been increasing, yet still having issues on the mound. He can't be trusted, and it really goes towards this theme of this Phillies bullpen of who are they? What is their identity? They don't have one at this point, folks. They do not have an identity. In fact, I think that could be said for the entire Phillies team at this point. The Phillies are so desperate for some bullpen help that they have officially moved starting pitching prospect Seth Johnson to the bullpen. He was acquired last summer, if you remember, in the Gregory Soto deal with the Orioles. He appeared in 8 games across the Phillies organization last year following the trade. He has made 4 starts this year in AAA, had a 4.42 ERA across 18 1/3 innings that have been pitched. He made his debut out of the bullpen this past Tuesday night and went 2 hitless innings while striking out 2 and walking 2. So from reports, the Phillies believe that his fastball was able to get up to about 98 miles per hour as a reliever, averaged around 96 miles per hour last season, along with his slider and what that has been coming out of the bullpen. So the key for Seth Johnson is going to be limiting walks. We're going to have to see how this goes. again, we know the Phillies bullpen can certainly use all the help it can get as they have entered and are going to be entering this coming series against the Chicago Cubs, the second worst bullpen in Major League Baseball with a 5.70 ERA. Something has to be done. But you also look at the starting pitching, and it's really bizarre what we have seen from Aaron Nola. Maybe it isn't bizarre because in odd number years, as we are in now, Aaron Nola struggles. In even number years, folks, not sure if you know this, he thrives. He pitches so well in even number year. It is the most bizarre thing that I have ever seen, I think, in Major League Baseball, specifically from a pitching perspective. Aaron Nola is struggling. Zach Wheeler isn't having the best season. Thankfully, Christopher Sanchez has been the, quote, ace of this starting rotation, and now he's dealing with an injury. They need to massage that injury so well to make sure that he is able to come back and have no issues with that forearm at all. When we talk about the batting on this team as well, I just think the runners in scoring position situation that this team has been in, and we talked about it last week with Destiny Legardo on the show in our discussion there. It's a lack of execution. It's a lack of situational awareness from this team. And that really is the most disturbing part, because you have veterans on this team who have been around this game a very long time and should have a better understanding of situational baseball. At the end of the day, they don't. Trey Turner, even Bryce Harper has said, the time is coming, or the time has come at this moment to stop saying, okay, it's early in the season. They need to perform. They are veterans. They know what's at stake right now. At this point of us recording this, they're 5 games behind the New York Mets, who, quite frankly, they've got all the vibes right now, don't they? Man, this team, their fan base has actually been critical of Juan Soto as of late because of his OPS numbers. I don't know. Things are seemingly working out for the Mets at this point. So with that being said, folks, this Phillies team, from an overall picture, they do not have an identity. They do not know who they are. And I think that's a problem. My level of concern is probably around a 5-6 at this moment. I'm not 100% sure that these guys are going to be able to get out of their heads. The sports psychology aspect of the game of baseball has really been taking its toll on this team. This team, who has so much experience under their belts, just can't seem to find that identity. And there is an issue with that. There's a major issue with that. So we're going to keep following this team. We're going to keep following the Phillies, moves that they make. They're going to have to do something in terms of the bullpen. And the bullpen needs a spark for sure. This team needs a spark at the end of the day overall. But we're going to keep on it here at the PST Podcast Show. So with that being said, again, we have an abbreviated show here this week. We are going to be talking to Ryan Gilbert from BroadStreetHockey.com and the Broad Street Hockey Podcast in just a few seconds here. But we do want to take a break. And we're going to be back in just a bit. We're going to have a lot of great Flyers talk. Joining us this week from BroadStreetHockey.com, and you can also listen to his voice over at the Broad Street Hockey Podcast. I listen on Apple Podcast, and you can listen on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on. And it is great to see him. Great to have him in his little studio as he's coming into my little studio to get into this Flyers offseason. Thank goodness we've got the one and only Ryan Gilbert. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Always a pleasure to join you here, Jeff. First time here on video with you, so this is a big step up. I'm
it is
StreamYard here. I like seeing it, but yeah, I wish we were talking about the playoffs or something else. But you got to go through the lows to enjoy the highs or whatever.
Exactly.
So another rebuild year.
Exactly. How many lows do we have to go through in Flyers Nation? It is constant, right?
It seems like a lot of lows for years, decades now.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some of those lows, folks. Don't you worry. We're going to be getting there on this discussion and within this podcast episode. Well, I want to dive into some of the reflections of this past season with you, Ryan. we saw some good things. We saw some not so good things, a lot of not so good things here. So I want to get into both to get this discussion started, because I think we kind of have to dissect what we saw this past season and evaluate where that goes in terms of what we should be seeing for this Flyers team and organization during this coming offseason. So let's get into the negative aspects of what this season was here first. And yes, there were certainly a bunch of them. Of course, John Tortorella being one of them. I know you and I both, and the majority of Flyers Nation, we were very happy when he was relieved of his duties as head coach of this team. And I even though he was a negative, that was an actual positive in my mind, being able to really start, or at least the front office having the opportunity to start thinking about where they want to take this team and who's going to lead it in the future. But let's get into some of your negatives here, because that was actually more of a positive with John Tortorella not being here. So notable negatives of this season. What are some of those for you?
Well, the obvious thing is the goaltending, but we're going to get into that in a
Right.
little bit. So, I mean,
Yep.
the other pretty obvious thing is the power play. And it just seems to be year after year,
Yep.
no matter what the personnel is. I mean, it's been Rocky Thompson has been coaching for a few years now. The Flyers have had, close to the league worst power play. Briere joked they took a baby step from 12% to 15%, which, it was good to see. Yeah, having Michkov there, but you have all these talented players. You have Michkov, you have Konecny, you have Forster take a step forward. You have Drysdale now could be on the point. Like you have these guys who you really want to see more out of on special teams and the
Yeah.
penalty kill too. But I mean, primarily the power play. Like, and it took them till the final weeks of the season to finally try out that 5 forward power play that
Yep.
Briere said he liked. But why not try that earlier when you're 0 for 20 or whatever you are? But the power play is always going to be a big thing because you watch these playoffs and you see these teams, they go on a power play and it's a huge opportunity for them. And for the Flyers, it was just like, all right, another power play. Let's hope they
Yep.
don't get scored on.
Right, exactly. And I think that when we look at the positives, of course, I mentioned John Tortorella being relieved of his duties as head coach, Matvei Michkov coming to the United States, making a significant impact. I mean, Danny Briere in his presser this past week said, I can't believe the guy was actually as good as he was. I didn't think he'd scored 20 goals. So I think he said that, if I'm not mistaken. In your mind, I think Matvei Michkov is really the answer of the more positive takeaways from this past season. Aside from him, are there any others that really come to mind for you that you can say, you know what, this was a good foundational piece. This was a positive from this season?
There's actually a lot of them, which is surprising because they were the fourth worst team, the fourth lowest points, or
Yeah.
the fourth best draft odds. But yeah, Michkov is the obvious one. Tyson Forster had a tremendous season, and really that whole line, the Forster,
Yeah.
Noah Cates, and Bobby Brink, that line got put together in late November. They were taken apart for a little bit here and there, but they were primarily put together and looked like a legit like third line for on a good team, a second line for the Flyers, but a third line on a good team. And then you see that Forster scoring barrage at the end of the season, the hat trick against the Rangers, a few good snipes in there, 2 goals, another 2 goal game. So you really see Forster as a guy who, a first round pick. He came in, known for his shot, not being a great skater, and he's turning into one of the best 2-way players on the team. And I think he's starting to
Yeah.
get some recognition around the league there, and also on defense. Like, there's no defenseman that you're like, I don't want to see him out there right now. Like Zamula
That's a
has,
really good point. Yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
they have 3 decent pairs. There's no bad pair.
Right.
There's no Andrew McDonald or Keith Yandel or someone like that. It's like, okay, third pair, Zamula, Andre. I don't love it, but you can deal with it.
Right. Absolutely. Look, folks, we're talking to Ryan Gilbert from the BroadStreetHockey.com, Broad Street Hockey podcast as well. Ryan, can you tell everybody where they can find you out there on the interwebs if they wanted to follow you, catch your work, and things that you're doing?
So yeah, you can follow me still on Twitter at rgilbertsop, but more so on Blue Sky at ryangilbert.bsky.social. Yeah, Broad Street Hockey. Read there, listen to the Broad Street Hockey podcast. And if betting is your thing, I understand it's not for a lot of people, but I do host the Hockey Gambling podcast as well. If you're looking to get
That's
into
right. How
some
can I forget?
hockey betting.
Yes, absolutely. And you do a great job with that podcast too. Folks, real quick, our social media sites and where you can follow the Philadelphia Sports Table, myself and my co-host Eric. Yeah, that's right. Len is not on social. He is actually giving himself a mental health break, bless his soul here. But if you are watching on YouTube, here are the social media sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter/X. You can follow me on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. I'm over at Blue Sky as well. So is Eric at Brick Pollitt. We're also there on Threads, and you can like our Facebook page as well. Getting back into this Flyers, upcoming off season here, and what one particular position is going to look like long term, and you kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago here, is the goalie situation. And I'm just wondering what this goalie situation is going to look like long term for the Flyers here, Ryan. Sam Ersson just doesn't seem to be the guy that is that long-term solution that some of us were just really holding out hope for, even though in the back of our minds kind of knew that he wasn't. Ivan Fedotov, Alexei Kolosov certainly didn't meet the moment and the expectations this past season. Where do you think the goalie situation really goes from here, whether it's during this offseason, even from a long-term perspective? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, long term does look better. It looks like they have some decent prospects in Carson Bjarnason and Zavragin. He's very young, but he had great numbers in the KHL this season. But for the short term, I think this offseason they have to go out and add a veteran tandem goalie because Ersson, yeah,
Yeah.
we all have high hopes for him, but I don't think he can be that 50 game starter. He can't be that clear number one. He might be able to be the top of a tandem
Yeah.
rather than a 1A or a 1B, but I think they need to go out and get somebody. There's not a lot of great free agents out there. Jake Allen, he was with the Devils this year. He did pretty well in a tandem with Jacob Markstrom. Alex Lyon was with the Red Wings. He was here before. I'm not sure if he can do enough of a workload to be there for the other half of Harrison. But
Right.
Dan Vladar, David Rittich. But the one guy that I am kind of angling for, and not everyone has been a fan of when I bring them up, is trading for John Gibson. There's 2 years left
Ooh,
on his
all right.
contract.
Yeah.
It's like a $6 million deal. So you have cap space the next 2 years because you have
Right.
all these guys on their rookie deals, on their early deals. So, bring him in. He worked with Lucas Dostal this year in Anaheim. He had a great season. Maybe he can be the 1A. They can both like start around 40 games. Both are a bit injury prone. And then in that case, you bring up Harrison or bring up Kolosov or Fedotov or whoever from the Phantoms. But you need to put Ersson in his ideal role to let him possibly thrive.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting notion, and making sure that the goalie situation is going to be solid over the course of these next 2 to 3 years, or I should say, when we get to that point within the next 2 to 3 years, to make sure it's solid is so very critical. I mean, we know that needs to happen. It's just, I just go back to, and I hate thinking about Carter Hart and what he
Mhm.
did to this organization, what he did to this particular position on this team that was supposed to be solidified for so many years. I hate you, buddy. I hate you. I am so I think about it and I start to get enraged. My face starts to get red here. So we should probably move on to the next topic here. Danny Briere in his recent presser talked about how the rebuild was going to be shifting to adding more talent to the team. And I know that you recently talked about this on the Broad Street Hockey podcast, Ryan. It seems that the team is going to build around guys like you mentioned before: Tyson Forrester, Owen Tippett, Cam York, Noah Cates, Bobby Brink, Jamie Drysdale, and of course Matvei Michkov. Briere said that adding didn't necessarily mean bringing in outside talent and acquisitions, but the promotion of players within the farm system. Thought it was interesting for him to note that and where he wants this farm system to go in terms of this rebuild. What are your thoughts on this sentiment and how this may look for the Flyers season this coming year and even beyond?
Yeah, I think having those internal promotions, internal battles are going to be important because you come to training camp every year. There's always a battle, whether it's
Right.
real or not. But this coming season, you got a lot of Briere's first draft picks turning pro. You got Luchenko, or not Luchenko yet, but he's going to be on the team. You got Bonk, you got Barkey, you have Grebenkin, who they got in the Lawton trade. You have all these guys that are coming up and are going to make the Phantoms very exciting. And that's
Yeah.
been something kind of a negative too, is that like, sure, we got Oli Lexell, we got Rodrigo Abels, we got Anthony Richard, but none of them are really like players that are going to win a job. They're there because they have to be there
Yeah.
because of injury. So I
It's
think
kind of been
that
a boring season for the Phantoms over the past few seasons, it's kind of been like,
Yeah, they're in
honestly,
the
I haven't been to as many games.
no, because they're all the way out tender. But yeah, they're in the playoffs now. They finally have those young guys now. Luchenko joined them. Grubenkin's there. Bump is looking good as too
Yeah.
good as well. So you have these guys that are going to be pushing in camp. Might not win a job, but if they're getting hot in the AHL and the Flyers need a spark, maybe those fourth liners won't be as comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, moving along with the discussion here, Danny Briere is going to be looking at bringing in some talent in free agency as well. We know this, whether it is a veteran goalie in the NHL, whether there are going to be some defensemen possibly brought in, maybe some wingers as well. I'm wondering, when you're looking at free agency and what may be coming down the pike, Ryan, what names intrigue you, and do you think there could be some realistic, bigger type of names that end up coming to Philadelphia when free agency starts?
It is possible because the Flyers do have this reputation now of taking care of their players, doing right by their
Yep.
players. Like the Eric Johnson trade, they didn't have to trade him, but now he's has a chance at a cup again with the team that drafted him first overall. So you could see maybe, especially with the salary cap going up, these bigger names, the Flyers could give them like $10 million like 2 years, like they're not going to get John Tavares, but someone like that, John
Right, right.
Tavares, Sam Bennett's out there. They probably not Brock Nelson, another center, because you're looking at center or you're looking at goalie, and goalie's not going to be a big name. There's no big names out there in free agency, so it would be a center. And I don't necessarily want to bring him back in this leadership room, but Claude Giroux would fit this team so well.
Yes.
Have him
Yep.
quarterback the power play. He can play center, he can play wing, he can take faceoffs, but I don't know if they want to bring him in when they have this young core
Right.
growing. So maybe like a Michael Granlund he's on the Stars right now, but he may want to go win somewhere. I think the big name is, and we've heard it with offer sheets and restricted free agents, is Marco Rossi, the center in
Yeah.
Minnesota. He
Yeah.
had 60 points this year. He's playing third, fourth line in the playoffs for Minnesota. So
Yeah.
either a trade or an offer sheet for him, I think is the top target for me.
I take him. I'd absolutely take him at this point. So as we're moving along, the Flyers are currently sitting at number 4 overall in the NHL draft. I think they have a 9.5% chance of landing the number 1 pick in the draft lottery. This draft is so important to this team, this organization, and us fans as well, just because they have 3 first rounders here. In terms of this upcoming draft and their strategy here, Ryan, of course we'd all like to see the Flyers end up with a prospect perhaps like Matthew Schaefer. I doubting that that's going to happen, but if they don't end up with him, do you see Danny Briere and company, how do you see them handling their first pick of the draft here?
Yeah, this is Briere's third draft now. The first year, Michkov kind of fell into their lap at
Yep.
7. And then last year we saw, there were rumors after the fact that they were looking to move up. We obviously saw them trade back. So I think that's the one big thing with Briere, and he mentioned it in his presser last week, is he's looking for value. Like you said,
Yeah.
they have those 3 first round picks. They have four picks in the first half of the second round. Like they have 7 top 48 picks, and they're not necessarily going to use all of them. So I could very well see them, trading up if they do see one of those targets that they really want, like a Schaefer, like a Michael Misa, or maybe if James Hagens or Anton Frondell
Yep.
falls down, they could trade back. And I think a lot of fans are like, all right, we have to go out and get our center. But I wouldn't be shocked if they think a winger like Porter Martone or Roger McQueen is the best guy out there. And they're like, all right, let's get the best player available and
Yeah.
let's not pass that up and we can go get a center elsewhere. So I feel like it's very important draft for Briere, but this is going to be the highest pick they get. I don't think they're going to be this bad again. So
Yeah.
they have to make sure they hit on this one.
When you look at this, I mean, I didn't expect to ask you this, but when you do look at this, of course, we know that the center is needed. I mentioned in free agency, maybe they would look at a winger, perhaps. I don't think we can take the winger mentality and kind of slough that off to the side, because with this team and the inconsistencies that we've seen here and there from the wings every now and again, I mean, if you're able to develop somebody, a top end talent, the value that you're talking about, I don't think that's a bad thing when it comes to hockey, when it comes to this Flyers team and organization. in the midst of this rebuild here. If it ends up being a winger, I don't see an issue with that at all. Would you agree with that?
I agree because I don't think they have too many wingers that have top six potential. I mean, they have Konecny.
Exactly.
He'll be a
Yep.
top six winger for a
Yep.
while. Michkov going to be a first line winger his whole career. Forster's looking top six, but Tippett probably more middle six. I don't
Yeah.
know if he's proven that. And then
Yeah.
you got a bunch of guys. You got Brink. You got Pelletier. You got Hathaway's a fourth liner. You got and all these young guys. You don't have like that top winger besides Michkov, and like you
Right.
can't. He's hopefully going to be great, but he'll need someone to play with on the other side and in the middle. And everyone's like, "Oh, we need a 1C, we need a 1C." Sure, but if you have two legit top line wingers on that line and you have a decent 2C as that 1C, you can kind of get by. So I don't think they should pass up, getting a winger. I could see fans being up in arms about it, but just get the best player available. If players are dropping and you want to trade back, sure. If someone if you're at 4 and you want Misa at 2, go up and get him. Like, just
Right.
I trust this front office right now to do what they think is best with these draft picks. Because we didn't like the Jet Luchenko pick, and then
Right.
2 months later, we're like, "Oh, this is great. We love this."
Right. Exactly. You mentioned a key word, trust. With regard to this front office, I'm still trusting this front office. I'm still trusting Danny Briere. Look, not every single move seems to have, quote, made sense. But I think there has been a strategic plan in place that we did not have prior to him taking the helm in
Mhm.
terms of running this team and being the general manager. I am trusting Danny Briere. And I think that the majority of Flyers fans should be in that camp as well.
Yeah, there's a clear plan. You may
Yeah,
not agree with the plan. You may want them to bottom out, but they have the plan of building the culture and then getting the talent to fit the culture. And
absolutely.
yeah, I and fans try to put the issues of Chuck Fletcher and Ron Hextall and all these past GMs on Briere because
Right.
it's the same organization. And you get it. It's all Flyers have been the same team past 20 years. They can't get anything. It's always two 2 or 3 years away from being 2 or 3 years away. But no,
Yep.
this is a new front office. They came in, they said, we have to rebuild, we have to change things. And they've done that so far. So I feel like, and I don't think they've lost any move they've made. I think they've either won or at least, came out win-win with their trade partners. So
Right.
trust, I think, is a big thing. And it's all you can do. You can trust or you can just complain all the time, which, that's fun too. But
Exactly.
if we're gonna be positive, you have to have some trust.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to complain when they're on losing streaks in the middle of the
Yes.
season, of
Yeah.
course. However, all right. Well, Brian, before I let you go, buddy, and I know it's a general question here, but is there any talent in this upcoming NHL draft that you like outside of the first round that you think would be able to help this Flyers team in terms of the rebuild in the years to come? Is there anybody sticking out to you?
So I'm not sure if this guy's going to fall out of the first round, but he's fallen down the draft boards a lot. It's Russian center Ivan Rybakin.
Yeah, yeah,
He's had a lot of attitude issues.
yeah.
He hasn't been in the KHL. He's over in the USHL now. But if the Flyers talk to him and they're like, "All right, we think this guy can come play with Michkov," it goes back to what we were just talking about, and it's the trust. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, if the Flyers talk to this guy and he can buy in, and you can get him with 1 year later first round picks or an early second round pick, go do it. You
Yep.
have 7 picks. You can use one of those to take a big swing on a guy that could end up being, a top 10 talent from this draft.
Absolutely. All right, folks. We're going to let him go. It was great talking Flyers with Ryan Gilbert from BroadStreetHockey.com, the Broad Street Hockey Podcast. Again, tell everybody where they can find you out on the socials and the other podcasts that you're doing as well, Ryan.
Yeah, primarily on Blue Sky at RyanGilbert.bsky.social. Come on over if you're not on Blue Sky. We need more sports people over there. It's a good time over there. A lot of fun over there. On Twitter, still at RGilbertSOP. And then, yeah, Broad Street Hockey, Broad Street Hockey Podcast, and Hockey Gambling Podcast if you're into that type of stuff.
You do good work, my friend. And that's going to do it for us, folks, here this week. We've got great content coming to you next week. And again, I'm going to put up our socials here for those watching on YouTube. Follow us on various social media sites. They're up on your YouTube screen right now. And if you are listening through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or whatever podcast platform. We are on the Twitter/X. We are on the Threads, the Blue Sky. You can follow me there at Jeff Warren. You can follow Eric at Brick Pollitt. We are on Instagram, and you can follow me over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. So that is going to do it for us this week. Take care, everybody, and we will catch you next time.